10 years after 3 weeks. We also heard from Marcia and Django about ADHD. That was an amazing testimony as well. And then we also heard from Estelle with ME and chronic fatigue syndrome and her amazing results. So today our focus is on Clean Slate. Why it's important, the uniqueness of it, it's patented, the proprietary process, the bioscience engineering, nanotechnology, and the manufacturing process, cellular communication, heavy metals, viruses, bacteria, fungus, and parasites, selective detoxification, and orthosilicic acid, and what that means, because I think it's really important. And I know that Clayton, you've been talking about it on other calls, and Christina's been talking about it as well. So I thought, not everybody's on those calls. And so for our people here, I thought it'd be good to just go over it again.
I'm with you.
Okay. So why is Clean Slate important? And as Clayton likes to say, we've been taught over the past years that we need to supplement in order to maintain health. So we have to unlearn this process, because the key to wellness in our world today is actually addition by subtraction. And so what that means is that you have to get the bad stuff out first before you can actually add the good stuff. So we already know that the Band-Aid approach is a temporary fix. You cannot keep putting any supplement into an unhealthy environment and expect to get great outcomes. It's guaranteed to fail. You need to get to the root cause of the issue, and that means you need to reset your environment. So one of the things, Clean Slate, first of all, is so unique. It's a fantastic product that no one else has ever produced. It truly is a unique category creator. This is a standalone product. There's no comparison. It detoxifies, rejuvenates, and replenishes the minerals in the body, including those that pass across the blood-brain barrier and through the cellular membranes. There are many patents in the pipeline. Clean Slate has a unique proprietary process that utilizes a 2 to 3 step fractionation process. The manufacturing process actually starts with the selection of clinoptilolite. The raw ingredient that we start with is sourced from a very pristine single mine in the US that's proprietary only to root. It's 97% pure clinoptilolite, 3% bentonite. It's extremely rare to find something that pure. And the next step of the process includes fractionation and cryofracking, as well as polarization and magnets, to create an incredible product that really no one else has ever produced. So, and later in the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more in depth on that subject. So Clean Slate supports and communicates with your body. It can communicate, recognize, naturally disassemble, and disassemble destructive elements that basically gets to the root cause. And not only does Clean Slate detoxify heavy metals, but it can actually go in and get rid of and dismember viruses, parasites, funguses, and as well as bacteria. So then when we talk about, heavy metals, it's not limited to just mercury, cadmium, arsenic, lead, cesium, strontium, uranium, tin, and copper, and gadolinium, et cetera, but it also can take Lyme biofilms, biotoxins, viral particles, upregulation of tumor suppressor genes, and black mold. So now we come to the star of tonight. Why are we talking about orthosilicic acid? Because orthosilicic acid is what is being released from Clean Slate. Orthosilicic acid is the magic. It's not just an ordinary form of zeolite. So, Clayton, you go ahead and interrupt me and stop me if I'm saying something that's not right, but I'll just keep on going now. One of the most important sources that releases orthosilicic acid is a bioavailable form of a certain type of zeolite, a class of aluminosilicates. So on the new labels of Clean Slate, you will see orthosilicic acid instead of clinoptilolite. So the label change is due to scientific advancements and the unique proprietary manufacturing process and proper registration for Europe. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a very pure form of clinoptilolite. And when you look at the structure of clinoptilolite, what's important, as Clayton mentioned in another video, is this right here, the silica. So the process, what's that?
Hit record.
Ah, are you kidding me?
You're going to want to record this.
Hit record. Did you not?
I didn't do it. You want me to do it?
Do it. I can't believe. Are you sure?
There, now you're recording.
Oh my God.
You can do the intro and then we can edit it later. So keep going.
We'll just fix it later. It's no big deal. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so I talked about the label. So the process that we use to fracture the honeycomb structure of the clinoptilolite dramatically increases the surface area. So basically, instead of having thousands of pieces, we now have like millions of pieces, and so this gives us a greater surface area. And when this happens, you can free up the connection points of the clinoptilolite and create massive amounts of orthosilicic acid. And the fragments are a combination of silicic acid and clinoptilolite. And this combination changes the classification to orthosilicic acid. Was that correct?
Yeah, and I can probably touch on a couple more things, but it's important to understand that there's two components. Right, we're creating a massive amount of orthosilicic acid, but we're also fragmenting the clinoptilolite, and that's actually the reason for the availability of the orthosilicic acid. And I think I'll hit on that a little more as you go. So keep going.
Okay, well, the silica becomes exchangeable when the Clean Slate is working throughout the system, right? So the cage structure, binding sites, and the silica are exchanged for mercury, cadmium, arsenic, aluminum, all the heavy metals, environmental toxins, including viruses, bacteria, and mold. So I think that's a really interesting point that, you know, now that we have like millions we have all this huge surface space that every time a metal's hitting into the cage, the silica is being released, right? Right. So the orthosilicic acid releasing property is what makes Clean Slate biologically active with life-enhancing, profound therapeutic effects. I mean, this is much more than a simple detoxification product, because not only is it detoxifying your body, but according to numerous studies, it's also associated with bone mineralization, with skin, hair, and nail growth, atherosclerosis, Alzheimer's disease. And interesting, you probably read this, Clayton, but with Alzheimer's, they're talking about improvement of cognitive performances of individuals. And it's possibly where it actually implies that the possible use of orthosilicic acid as a long-term non-invasive therapy for the reduction of aluminum in Alzheimer's patients, according to the Nutrition and Metabolism Journal. It also has implications for the immune system enhancement and collagen synthesis. So this is really important because it stimulates, all ladies are going to love this. So it stimulates collagen type 1. It minimizes your fine lines, wrinkles, improves your skin elasticity and hydration. And not only does it help to rebuild your muscles, eyes, bones, and spine, it's also good for strengthening your nails, helping you grow stronger, thicker hair. It also stimulates your immune system through cell-to-cell communication, which in turn can help the pulmonary clearance of infectious agents. And in addition, it has another potential antiviral therapy for local skin applications, for example, herpes virus infections, and even oral treatments for adenoviruses like common cold, like flu-like symptoms, fever, sore throats, acute bronchitis, pneumonia, pink eye, and gastrointestinal issues, along with enterovirus infections as well. So back to you, Clayton.
I think the one thing to add to that is you said what was it? Immune enhancing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really important for people to understand, because there's a couple certain groups of people that are, as you can say, immune compromised, and that are really, really toxic. And this is where it comes from, that might be diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, fibro and such, where they're told that they have an overactive immune system. So you don't want to stimulate your immune system. But the most important part is you become immune regulatory. And this is the crucial component of understanding. Hold on one second. The boss is calling. I'm gonna let you take over. Hold on one second, babe. The important component to understand is that a healthy body is regulatory, right? If you remove the causes of issues and you start to feed your system with some of the key components that it needs to function, it's self-regulatory. Like you hit on, if you want to be anti-parasitic, if you want to be antibacterial, if you want to be antiviral, be healthy, be clean, because we are all of those. You don't need drugs for those. You don't need antibiotics. You just need to make sure that this is functioning properly. And if so, everything else comes in line. So I'll let you take it on from there. But those are some of the big ones. You want me to dive into a couple more things on that, or
sure, go ahead.
You probably have more slides, right?
No, this is it.
Okay.
I thought that was plenty just to have talking points.
I think it's plenty. I think it's great. So the important part, actually, we're posting one of the blogs should be up here shortly. If I can share, let me see if I can share this right here. And as you can see, this was published October 29th of 2020.
Oh, maybe I have to stop.
Can you see my screen?
No.
Can you see him now?
No. Hang on a minute.
Make sure I'm doing it right.
Hang on. There. Now you try.
You had your screen.
I had my, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so this, can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was published, you can see October 29th of 2020. So we're talking 12 days ago. To give you an idea how current we try to stay, this isn't even in print yet. As you can say, it says online ahead of print. But as Dory was hitting on, this is talking about enhancing osteogenesis of osteoblasts. And so what does that really mean? And as we've touched on before, where does bone strength and bone development have its highest level of prevalence in our society? It's women over the age of, we'll say 45, right? And because as you age, if you hit menopause, which we're now figuring out is actually just an issue with environmental toxicology anyway, but as you hit 50, the lead that's in bone starts to leach out. And in this article, that is actually discussed. Let me see here. This is, I'm not sure if I can pull up the full study from this. We just pulled it down and we wrote an article on it. But what's important and what's discussed in this article, as well as other research, is we know that lead, and we're all exposed to lead in different aspects of our life. Many of us, depending upon where we were born, where we were raised, and our environmental exposure, but also the time that you were here. The older you are, the higher the likelihood that you have greater lead exposure. But we know mercury loves brain, aluminum loves brain tissue. Cadmium will be stored in different areas of the body. Lead, one of the areas that it loves to be stored in is bone. So it will actually displace silica and calcium and vitamin K in the mineralization of bone. So after the age of 50 or right around the age of 50, that lead starts to leach from bone back into the bloodstream, which is one of the primary causes of women becoming hormonal, right? Because lead is hormone mimetic. It will mimic estrogen. It's a neurotoxin. It will go to the brain, and it's inflammatory, and it has a host of other issues. But by leaving bone, it leaves your bone weaker, right? And that leads to the conversation of, okay, how do you remineralize bone, but also how do you bind and remove lead? And we sit at the forefront of having one product that does both, almost exclusively, because no one's ever done this before. No one's ever had this conversation. No one's ever had the capability. So we have the ability to bind the lead, but then also, as Dory was mentioning, release the silica, the orthosilicic acid, so the bioavailable silica. And that's what orthosilicic acid is, or silicic acid, which you'll see on the label of Clean Slate. Orthosilicic acid is bioavailable silica, which the body can use. And that's what Dory was hitting on. It's for hair development, your skin, your nails, your joints, connective tissue, ligaments, tendons, muscle, organs. So it opens up the opportunity to really start to regenerate properly, because you need the building blocks. And there's so many conversations about stem cells, but before the stem cells can go to work, you got to have the tools, to rebuild and redevelop. And
she's not taking off, is she?
Well,
no, she'll move him over into the other car.
Have that. Mm-hmm. The other part is looking at the best source, like Dory was mentioning. So this is not science fiction, right? It talks about this article, which is the primary one on orthosilicic acid, goes over zeolites and zeolite as the primary source. Hold on, I'm gonna get out of here.
She only has one.
Who's talking?
Michelle.
Albert.
I muted her.
Michelle, you're terrible. Shame on you. I'm trying to have fun here. So when you look at orthosilicic acid and you look at clinoptilolite, what we're talking about is not science fiction. It's science fact. We're not making up stuff to use a bunch of keywords and buzzwords to sound important. This is legitimate. And I think we're a lot more advanced scientifically than even we understand yet. And we're seeing some of that as well. And where do you want to go with this? Because I
see there's a lot of questions here.
Let me see. Is there a difference between micronized and fragmented clinoptilolite from Verena? Yes. So that's been actually a topic of conversation I've had with a couple people online, because a couple of our ambassadors over in the Eastern Europe, actually online through Facebook relationships, had an individual in New York that they were talking with, and he's brought up some interesting conversations. But let me show you a couple things that are important, right? And I've gone over to scanning electron microscope images before, but we can look at some of these, because this is how it applies for the use of orthosilicic acid and such. Is when we talk about fragments and different sizes, and you'll hear people talk about nano fragments and micro fragments, and I'll show you what that means. The nano fragments they're a buzzword because people think the term nanotechnology is something that can be thrown around. And granted, what do we know? My wife has postdoctoral work from Harvard in nanotechnology and bioscience engineering. Not many people hold this certification. She's actually one that can talk about nanotechnology. Most people that claim to do stuff on a nano level have no semblance of an idea of what they're really talking about. They just use a buzzword, right? And so I'll show you some of the analysis of different particle ranges, because measuring nanoparticles is actually a completely separate set of analysis than micronized particles, and I'll show you why. And I'll show you why those are important, because this applies to the whole thing. But this is just one scanning electron microscope image of what some of the fragments look like under. This is 2,000 times magnification, and the width here that you see on the bar is 10 microns in width. But you can see some of the cavernous structure and just the outside of the fragments, where clinoptilolite is sheet-like, which is why you see this structure the way that it is. But some of that is silica, and that's where things will be exchanged. Some of that's going to be left for the body to use. Other part remains part of the cage structure, where things are bound and trapped inside that porous structure and removed. And let me see here. So we're gonna go here. Just bear with me as I go through files here so we can pull up fun little data points, and we'll have fun with nanoparticles. And so let me see here, share here. So this was the nanoparticle analysis done at Particle Technology Labs. This was done in June. When I requested to have this done, because there was so much conversation about the difference in particle sizes, right? You have companies that promote being nanoparticles. And here's the important part for people that want to argue particle size. And you guys probably have a good idea of my personality. This is the only time I've ever heard people argue smaller is better. Not always true. But see, Mark agrees. It's right.
What? The smaller is better?
Personality first. Size isn't that important. It's all about personality. And our fragments are charged properly, so they have a lot of personality. You can take them out to dinner, and actually they will do good in a drink. We know that. But when we look at particle size, so you can see the D10, D50, D90s. These are particle size less than 10, less than 50, and less than 90 nanometers in size here. We'll go down to the scan so you can see that they'll range between 100, a little less than 100, and 340 nanometers in range. What does that mean? I mean, some of the fragments are really freaking small when we break them up and break them apart. And what actually is more important to me when looking at particle size analysis is not those super small ones, but these guys. And we'll go here. Of looking at the micron sizes. So down here is the nano range, right? And that's what we just looked at as far as the range here between 100 and 300 nanometers in size, where we have fragments in that size. But in addition to those nanoparticles, and it's really hard to determine what the nanoparticles are. You know, I suspect that it's likely just a bunch of silica that's been released. Because if we look at nanoparticles in a cage structure, they're no longer cage structured. They're just little bits and pieces. So it's like blowing up a honeycomb, right? That if you blow up a honeycomb, you're going to have little shreds here and there. Those would be the nanoparticles. What's important are the cage, the complete cages, and what actually has significant surface area, but also more of the binding capability. So this is where you see between 1 and 100 microns in size. And we're going to have another analysis done on this because of some of the enhancements we've done in the process, that the fragment range now is even more broad than between 1 and 100 microns. It's going up over 100 microns in size. And this is important because, one, Clean Slate is working in many different aspects of the body. Some of them are going to stay in the gut, as we've seen from some of the evidence from Dr. Rao's research, because you want to detoxify the gut. You also want to have many of those fragments get into the bloodstream. So you want them to permeate cellular membranes. You want them to be able to work from your head to your toes and everywhere in between. And with those cages, you want them to be able to release the silica, because like Dory was mentioning, clinoptilolate being a sodium aluminosilicate, that silica becomes one of those sites that's exchangeable, right? So it's going to grab onto mercury and release that orthosilicic acid, the silica. So it can be used. So it's removing bad guys and releasing good guys. And that process allows for the key word that's always the most important, outcomes, right? Because we could sit here and argue, oh, my product has this particle size and this particle range. At the end of the day, no one really cares. Because as Dory mentioned, what Clean Slate is a category, one is a category killer, but it's a category creator in process and mechanism. Because this has never been done before. The process is completely proprietary, and it's doing things that we've not seen before. I mean, we've seen Mark's testimonial from last week, and you can share those, and you see other responses in all of these Facebook groups. Simple detoxification does not yield the results that we're seeing. And that's what's so crucial to understand, right? Is the product's working on levels of the body that are very difficult to discuss because scientifically we're not quite there yet. I mean, what Christina is studying at Cornell and what she studied at Harvard, because of how advanced Harvard is and MIT with some of their research equipment, with what they're looking at as far as quantum physics, quantum energy, and the energetics of cells and the energetics of our entire system, and not only how we function internally, but as we discussed before with epigenetics, how we work, between humans energetically of expression, and how we can dictate how we function and how our cells and how our DNA can function. These are things that are not well known yet. But there are aspects that we're seeing that Clean Slate is supporting because of what it can do energetically, because of what it's doing physically to actually bind these heavy metals and these toxins, and then what it's doing to release silica. But here's the really, really important component to understand in this, that when you're taking your Clean Slate, right, when you've got a bottle of this, we're talking micro amounts of little fragments consistently that are doing massive changes in the body. So what does that tell you? It's not just what this is doing. It's what it's sharing with the body to help the body do on its own. You're basically, if you look at us as being a big biological computer, which we are, we're assisting the body in rewriting code, right? You're giving your system some new material that it can say, oh, you know what? This is an upgrade. This is an update. Here's what we can do better now. Oh, you know what? I didn't know how to do this 10 years ago, but due to advancements in code, here's an update. And that's what's so crucial to understand, is that this isn't just about what this is, right? It's so difficult to discuss because we're not just focused on what this is and what zero in is and how they're supportive, but we look macro. We want to look at your entire system because we're focused on outcomes. And that's my rant. It's in the camera already. So where should we go?
Listening to you talk, I actually was thinking about, there was something in one of the papers I read about antibiotics and things like that, that it can actually help with this, like cleaning it up, right? And so if we look at the gut, right, and we know that as we get older, that the V light literally just kind of lays there, doesn't do anything. So it can't like float around, it can't like grab anything anymore. So I'm just thinking, I don't know if it's true, but I'm thinking like, okay, it's got to be like, because of the results that we're seeing, the outcomes that we're getting, there's something happening there where it's either rejuvenating it somehow. I mean, it would really be interesting to do some tests on that. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest thing, and it's the hard part to explain to people because we've been so indoctrinated into a philosophy for our entire lives about how we're supposed to function, whether it's from pharma or whether it's the information being spun as to you need to buy these supplements, you need to eat these foods, and you need a lot of them. And there's two components to that. One, we do need nutrients, but if you've studied the pet cow effect, and I'm gonna make the thought process that maybe one or two people here have, and it's actually a law of physics that was done in 1972, looking at radiation, but it applies to nutritional supplementation, I think, more than what we truly understand, because what was discovered is they were looking at radiation exposure, and if a large dose of radiation exposure was more damaging than small dose consistently. And what they found, what was initially suspected, is that the large dose was going to be a lot more damaging. But they found that that was actually not true, because in a large dose, the body recognizes a threat and will flush it, or it will recognize that, hey, there's more of this here than I know what to do with, so we need to get this out quickly. And what they found is with, you can say microdosing, or very small amounts of a substance, that the body will take that, and if it's a toxin, it'll look at it and go, I don't know if you are supposed to be here. I don't think I have a use for you, but since there's not a lot of you, I'm just going to store you. And that's how we see with other heavy metal exposure, whether it's from what you breathe on a daily basis, what was in mom, what's injected into you, everything else. The small amounts are the killers because they build up. But the same thing goes for nutritional supplementation. You don't need a lot, because all you need to do is remind the body of what it can assimilate and what it needs to do with the energy of what you're giving it. And if you can start to restructure that process, like I said, if you want to be anti-parasitic, if you're concerned about bacteria, if you're concerned about viruses, if you're concerned about parasites need a host, right? Bacteria need a host. Viruses need a host. But they don't need a healthy host. They need a sick host, because a healthy body, let's look at the conversations people usually have about pH, right? A sick body is slightly skewed less than ideal. We're vlogging now. I'm on camera and on camera. Who knew? Such is my life. But the combination of a toxic host allows for bacteria, viruses, parasites, mold, all this stuff to actually persist. If you clean up the mess, and let's look at Lyme and biotoxins. The biotoxins created in Lyme are usually heavy metals that they use to attach to create a shield. Parasites and bacteria feed on heavy metals and toxins. They need them in order to survive. These heavy metals and toxins create negative inflammation, create a toxic environment, and are highly acidic. So they create slightly acidic issue in the body. It's the combination of those things that allows these issues to actually persist. Now, what happens if you just remove the cause of the problem? We are a regulatory system, right? We have the ability to heal. We have the ability to regenerate. How often do our cells regenerate? Every cell in your body is new every 7 years. We're constantly regenerating. The question is whether or not you do it well. Get the bad stuff out. Your body's going to take care of the rest. It's like all of this COVID stuff, and people are worried about viruses. As Dr. Rao has gone over before, your microbiome is loaded with bacteria. It's loaded with viruses, good and bad. But it comes down to expression, right? Which environment do you have in you that allows the expression of the good or the expression of the bad? If you're a cesspool, you don't have much of the good. But if you can clean up the cesspool, like I had kids cleaning our pool this morning because I don't like looking at sleet, leaves, and sludge in the pool. They get to clean the pool. So maybe I can jump in it later. If it's all dirty, I'm not going. I'm high maintenance. Look at my hair. So I don't want to get leaves in this. It's got everything else. I use the finest berries. But that's the crucial component of understanding what we've been taught about nutrition, about supplementation. A lot of it's false, right? Because you don't need a lot of that stuff if you clean up your system and you can start to assimilate things better. And it's like we've seen with nails. Women have had so many problems with their fingernails for so long. You get women with cracked nails, or they don't grow very well, so they get fake ones so they look better. I can't tell you how many people over the last month have come and is like, look at my nails. I have to cut them 2 to 3 times every other week now. And I'm having to change what I do. And they're starting to paint their own nails because they're coming in so strong and growing so well that they're just able to clean and paint their own nails versus spending 30, 40, I'll give you a secret. Some women spend like $100 on their nails. Married one of them. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I do love a good pedicure. So don't not get your nails done. Get the manicure and the pedicure because it helps relax, which is stress relief, which is what we're going to talk about here in a bit. But if you clean up the mess, the stuff that you worry about or the stuff that you see in the media that you're concerned about or the stuff that you hear from gurus in the wellness industry, none of that really matters because we're regulatory. So let me see what else we got. We probably made a few less friends with that rant. Silver earrings. There's a question from Estelle on silver earrings. No, silver is actually beneficial in small amounts. And if you're looking at metals now, gold and silver, you can go platinum and palladium as well. But gold and silver is actually the more rare and the more beneficial. It's used heavily in the medical industry. And there's actually less silver available than gold, but silver in small amounts can be beneficial. It's antimicrobial, and hopefully I can get the deal done in January. But there's a product that we're trying to get distribution for that is a silver citrate that is extremely antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, and it's just a great cleaner. And you can drink it. Let me see what else we got. Yep, you can always share. Let me see. Are you allowed to share on email? I'd love to share with my sister. That's from Katie. Absolutely. Our entire philosophy is based on sharing. That's what we do. And then what else we got?
Does this help with nickel allergies?
So allergies in general, this is probably going to lead me off on a rant, but allergies in general are different toxins, different components that get into your bloodstream. Some of them might be injected. Others might pass through your gut because you have a leaky gut due to glyphosate toxicity and metals and being toxic. So what we've seen pretty consistently is different allergic reactions dissipate as the body becomes more functional and more clean. So that's really the crucial aspect, whether it's copper or like my brother's allergic to nickel. There's a lot of people that are allergic to nickel, and it's funny that you're allergic to nickel because it's a toxic metal at times. Who knew? So you can be, I'll use peanut allergies as an example because that's one that's become fairly rampant for people, and I know the primary cause. And it's terrible. So if you have a peanut allergy, and I think for most of us that are here, I don't know if Django's here today because he would be the youngin that would probably have a peanut allergy because the rest of us don't have to worry about it because we weren't injected with it. But you never come across people that were allergic to peanuts or peanut butter when we were kids.
We got that every day.
Yeah, you think
for lunch.
It's like, oh, guess what? You're not going to make it because your peanut butter and jelly sandwich is going to happen one way or the other. And with the increase in use of injections, and I'll say shots, because I can't use the vaccine word because people argue over vaccines. And mind you, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm anti-adjuvant. I don't like all the other bad stuff that they put in them. But years ago, they started adding peanut oil into some of the vaccines. Why? I just don't know. But what happens when you inject peanut oil into someone's bloodstream? Their immune system is going to identify that doesn't belong. They're going to have an anaphylactic response, an immune response to that peanut oil because your immune system is going to attack the peanut oil that's there. That's going to create an allergy. It's going to create an allergic response to those invaders. So when you eat peanuts or you eat peanut butter or you're exposed to it, you're going to have that continual response because it was injected into you. Same thing goes if you eat stuff and you have a leaky gut. There's some stuff that can get through the lining of your gut that's not supposed to, that your body then has a reaction to that creates an allergy. And there's some stuff that we're supportive of because here's what we know, right? It goes back to our key point. There are many things that we might not be able to address directly. But if you can clean up your system, your body's going to do a pretty good job of figuring most of it out. And that's what's important, is giving your body the opportunity to be as vital as it can be.
Peter has a question.
Who does?
Peter, can you give a very short and easy answer to the question, what is the main difference between clean slate and powdered zeolite?
So the loaded question is, when have I ever done a short answer to anything?
Well, you have to make a short answer because we only have 10 minutes.
Okay, fine. So here's the thing with zeolite powders. Clinoptilolite is a crystal. It's ground into different sizes, rocks, pebbles, and sand, and like flour, which is what the powdered zeolites are made from. And sourcing is really important as well. So we're able to source from an exclusive mine here in the United States. It's actually the purest available in the country. And the United States has some of the best zeolite mines on the planet. Because if we start mining Santorini, people would take umbrage with that because it's a beautiful island, but it's a big ball of clinoptilolite. And the source that we get is 97% pure clinoptilolite, 3% bentonite. But the powders that you'll see on the shelf, that's our raw. So from our mine, we get clinoptilolite powder, purified clinoptilolite powder that I won't give you the metrics on what the real numbers are, but clinoptilolite powder, not expensive. If you get it right from the mine, and then if you have to package it, still not that expensive. There might be things to come from root. You never know. But that's what we start with. We start with the powder, and then we process that. We superhydrate it, we heat it, we fracture it, or we heat it, we freeze it, we heat it, we fracture it, we clean it, and then you get the fragments from it. And so the powders are where we source from, but that's what we process into here. So the powder, good powders, not all powders, because not all powders are good, right? But a good powder is really good in the gastrointestinal system. I use bentonite because they're good as a GI detox. I will tell you, Christina and I are working on a few things with powdered clinoptilolite because there is some benefit, but I'll add a couple things to it. We're discussing those to do something that's not been done. I won't get into it because that's the proprietary conversation of me talking with people a lot smarter than me. So that's why I'm here with Dory, and I get to go home with Christina. So that's, I think, the powdered question. Yeah, and that's the thing, is the particle size aspect for powders and such. It's not about size. I mean, guys, listen to me here. Women, earmuffs. Guys, it's not about size. It's about function.
That's what Peter's talking about. Peter's talking about size.
We're talking about clinoptilolite here. We're talking about function, not just size, right? Because we can dissolve stuff down to just back to water if we use a bunch of acid and dissolve and say, oh, these particles are really small. Yeah, but they're not functional. So what good is really, really small if it's not functional?
But I think maybe what he's actually getting at is that, when we try to explain it to people, why is it different? Do you have like a one-liner that you could give for that?
Powders stay in the gut. They're too big to go anywhere else. You have to break apart the honeycomb in order to get it to go everywhere. You can't. Well, here's the best example. You can't take a honeycomb out of the box and put it through a keyhole in your door, right? But if you take that honeycomb apart and you break it into small fragments, you get an individual honeycomb, you can put it through a keyhole. That's basically what we're doing. Because the rocks, the powders, they're good in the GI. They've been used for decades in the United States because they're known as antidiarrheals because they stay in the gastrointestinal system. They can't cross membranes. They can't cross mucosal membranes, sublingual membranes, GI membranes. They just can't go. And that's what makes this unique, is it doesn't just stay in the gut. It's head to toes.
I was actually really excited when I was reading this paper here because, the untapped market I think that people are missing right now are the baby boomers, actually.
Oh.
I talk to them all day long. I mean, they're talking about their knee pain, their hip pain, all these different things. They want to come for treatment, right? And I mean, when we look at that it can actually, remineralize the bone. That's like really impressive. And the fact that, and everybody wants to look good and stay young and these kinds of things. These are issues, even for, I guess, for people that are much younger than us. Well, me anyways.
Well, and I think that's the crucial part is you also look at this and you go, hold on, you're talking about bone remineralization. My pronunciation is a little bit slow right now. I didn't take my zero. And that's a byproduct.
Exactly.
I mean, it's happenstance, right? It's like, oh yeah, as an aside, because I want to do a drug commercial for Clean Slate, you have the drug commercial, it's a minute long, and you get 30 seconds of people talking about, oh, this is your life and this is great. We can have Mark in it for the psoriasis part of the commercial, and he'll go, check me out now. How you like me now? But here's your side effects. You might start functioning better. Your organs might function better. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Your bones might remineralize. And you have the list of effects. You go, wait a minute, I want all of those. Yeah, how about that? That's called healthy. Which would you prefer? Let me see here. So Verena asked the question of, do we recommend for women with hormonal breast cancer, clean slate and high doses, how many drops, how many times a day, already doing chemotherapy? And we'll just keep reading because we're not going to talk about treating conditions. But what is cancer? Cancer is caused by you being a freaking cesspool. And hormonal breast cancer, we've gone over before, aluminum in your lymph nodes. And some of the things that it can cause. And why you have hormonal breast cancer. Okay, what are hormone mimetics? Well, let's see. Soy, heavy metals, other toxins cause the problems. You remove those causes. Here's the key. We have tumor suppressor genes. Yes, studies on clinoptilolite done in Ukraine or Croatia back in 2005 or 2003 show that the use of clinoptilolite in and around abnormal cells has the propensity for those abnormal cells to reactivate tumor suppressor genes, P21, P27, and P53, which is your body's ability to have it regulate the proliferation of abnormal cells. Tumor suppressor genes do just that. They suppress tumors. They cause bad cells to die. That's epigenetics. If those cells activate when they're supposed to, you don't get cancer. If they don't, congratulations, you do. The key is, can you clean up your system to turn those genes back on where they need to be working? That's possible. If it were me, actually, I'll use my dad as an instance because he had malignant melanoma. And we used more than 10 drops twice a day. Some of the docs I work with that are experts in cancer and Lyme will tell you to use up to 50 to 100 twice a day. People just went, excuse me? It just depends on how aggressive you want to be in cleaning yourself up. That's really the question. Can it hurt you? No. And here's the thing. If you're really, really sick, in that instance, one could assume you're really sick, you're already in crisis. You're going through a crisis. So people are like, am I going to feel bad? I'm like, crikey, you've got freaking stage 4 cancer. What do you think you have? So make your choices, right? This is selective. It's the reason that it's not in a little capsule. This bottle, you can use as much as you want. We know the guidelines, but if you're dealing with a crisis and you want to be more aggressive, that's your choice. It's not going to hurt you. Just make sure you drink more water. Take your trace minerals, add some of the good stuff, and let your body handle the rest of it. The question is not, oh, can this treat it? The question is, what are you going to do to give your body the opportunity to recover? This is quite supportive. That's the key. It's not what Clean Slate's going to do. It's what Clean Slate's going to allow your body to do. That is the only question. And here's the thing. If you're talking to someone who's not using it, well, they're not maximizing their body's potential to heal because they're not getting bad stuff out. That's the simplicity. Injections? No.
Jazz says, have you had good results with ADHD? Yes, we have.
I think we had a testimonial on that.
Yes, we did last week.
And if you want to talk ADHD and the benefits, don't look at me. You might say it's not working. Judgment.
Hey, you need your zero in focus.
So Jazz asked a question. Do I think all ADHD is jab related? No, it is not. See, the thing is we live in a society. This is my last minute to go on a diatribe. We live in a society now where normal is not healthy. So if you have attention deficit and hyperactivity in our environment today where everybody's dumbed down, does that mean you're screwed up, or does it mean you're just high functioning? And I know for me, when I was diagnosed as ADD as a kid and they wanted to give me Ritalin and my mom said no, it was for me a matter of staying busy. And I can sit in meetings and then I think this is true for a lot of kids today, and it's important for parents to understand this, and even for people that are diagnosed as ADD or ADHD. It's not that they're the functional problem, it's that their brain is working so fast. And this is why Zero In and Clean Slate are really supportive, because it helps to balance that. But your brain works so fast, you need everyone else to speed up to catch up with you. I mean, I can be in meetings and I'll finish people's sentences in my head because I already know where they're going. So I'll need to do something else while I'm in that meeting, while I'm listening to that person, to make sure that I can slow down enough to actually listen to what they're saying versus me wanting to finish the conversation. So is it all something designed from something being injected? No. And if we can say that it's mercury related and it's neurotoxin related, it starts in the womb. So, and there's, holy crap, there's 46 more messages on here.
Well, we have to go now. You have to go on the other call.
So we're good. We're good for today. This was good. You have to re-record the beginning.
I know.
And I'm going to talk about stress. So cheers, everybody. I'll probably see you all.
Thank you, everyone. See you.